Hello and welcome to the forest. Today I'm testing the Canon EOS 350D or Rebel XT as it's also known as. And well, this is an entry-level DSLR from the year 2005. And I suppose as always the question is it good enough for taking pictures with still today? And well, to give a quick answer or to spoil the video, I would say yes, definitely. It's definitely good enough to be taking pictures with still in the year 2024, almost 20 years after it was released. Of course, there are some limitations. There is no video mode on the camera, so that's something to take into consideration if that's important. From today's perspective, the specifications might not be that impressive. It has an 8 megapixel CMOS sensor in APS-C format. The screen on the back is not so big either compared to modern cameras. In fact, you have two screens. One is the information screen, which holds the exposure information and what mode you're using and so on. And the lower one is for reviewing photos and checking the menus. Despite these limitations, it's still a very capable camera, and it does have some nice advantages. It's very light and small, and also it's fast enough. It's not slower like some of the older cameras from a few years before. You can take pictures quite fast and it doesn't cause like too many problems. I mean, there's even a burst mode, so yeah. Usability is very good. It has a nice grip to hold, maybe a little bit small, but there is actually a grip that you can get for it if you want to have a bigger grip. And well, there are plenty of buttons. Unfortunately, changing some of the settings does require some menu digging. And also there are plenty of automatic modes and also fully manual mode. So depending on how you want to shoot, there are different options available. The information screen might seem like an odd solution from today's perspective. And well, they did in fact change it in the next model, the 400D. There the main screen is also the information screen. But I think it still provides quite good information and you don't have to have the main screen on. So maybe you can save some battery that way. And yeah, they don't have it placed on the top as is usual because they wanted to make the camera really small. And also this model is smaller than the predecessor, the 300D. So yeah, they made a quite good job there. Well, to make it even smaller, they used a different type of battery, not the bigger BP511 batteries like on the 300D, but the smaller ones that are more commonly used in pocket cameras also. Also one thing to note that there is a clock battery here, so if the camera doesn't work or has some startup problems or something, it could be because the clock battery is empty and needs to be replaced. And the mount it uses is the Canon EOS mount, so there are plenty of lenses available for this, both professional level and well more cheap level lenses. And this one, the 10 to 22mm, is a APS-C specific lens. Another advantage today for this camera is that you can find it for very cheap, like 20 euros, 30 euros, something like that. And maybe a bit more if you want a lens with it as well. The buttons and the functions are kind of similar like on a advanced point and shoot like the G series cameras. For changing the shutter you can rotate this wheel here. So if you go and have a look. And then to change the aperture you have to press this AV button and rotate. So it's not as convenient as on more advanced DSLRs, like you have two wheels on those. So that's one limitation for quickly changing settings. The most important settings can be accessed through the buttons on the back. For example, the ISO menu can be brought up like so. One limitation with this kind of layout is that to get to the white balance you have to exit the menu again and then press again white balance and then exit the menu to go to some other setting. Well, this is usually how it is on the Rebel series cameras. On the other hand, some functions can be just changed by pressing this button, like the drive mode. So yeah, it's a bit of a mixed layout. And then reviewing the photos, I don't have any photos now, but that is very fast and convenient. Actually, I could take some photos and let's try to expose them properly also. Quickly it takes for the camera to... It's probably the worst photos I've ever taken. But then I'm not really looking what I'm doing either. But yeah, it shoots quickly and it loads it quite well fast enough into the screen. And there is more information like the histogram, which can be very useful for determining the exposure. Yeah, and what more, the memory type it uses is compact flash. I'm using a 2GB card, but it should accept bigger than 2GB. So that was a quick introduction to the Canon 350D. A very nice camera actually, not very advanced, but it has most of the features you need for a lot of different types of shooting. Maybe not professional wedding photography, but let's say for landscape photography, like I will attempt to do right now, for that it can be quite suitable. Yeah, so the sun came back right now, so we'll go and take some photos. And this camera is actually very familiar to me because I have used the successor, the 400D. So yeah, it is almost the same. Some small differences like the screen as I mentioned already, but otherwise basically the same camera. So the lens I'm using for today is the 10 to 22mm lens by Canon. It's quite nice wide-angle lens. Not the most sharp in the corners or so on, but it's not a big deal. I'm scaring away the birds. I guess the downside of being here in this time of the year is that you kind of tend to disturb the birds because they are, well, nesting right now. So I should be very careful about where I go. I think I will stay up here on this hill. But yeah, in any case, so the lens I'm using for today is the Canon EOS 10 to 22mm. Quite nice ultra wide lens. It's the only one I have with me for today. Sometimes it's quite nice to only be shooting with one lens, so you can, well, concentrate more on the photos and less on the gear. Like that would ever happen. Well, anyway, it looks very nice up here on the hill. Yeah, so I think I might start with my favorite tree, this one here. I have so many photos of this tree, but it's a very nice isolated, or let's say lonely tree growing on the hill. It makes nice silhouettes and things. I think the tree has grown slightly, so now it doesn't stay under the horizon. Maybe I can put it slightly above the horizon instead. The shutter sound is exactly the same as on the 400D. Kind of feels like I'm shooting with that camera. Feels a bit nostalgic. It was after all the first camera that I ever bought. So I don't think there are any nests around here. This area looks quite clear still. They were just hanging out around the water, the birds, I think, when I disturbed them. Well, here's another interesting looking tree, but I don't know, it's not so easy to find as photogenic trees as that one. Yeah, speaking of which, it's still there in the distance.